Welcome to Season 2 of Voices of Value, a conversation between Peter Kakos and Rik Rushton, and their high-achieving guests from professional sport, Olympians, business leaders, and ordinary people with value hacks to share through simple life lessons. If you're keen to reach your next level personally and professionally, sit back and join the conversation with your hosts, Rik and Peter.
Voices of Value, Rik Rushton here with my good friend Peter Kakos. Pete, welcome to another episode.
Thanks, Rik. And here we are again on Zoom. And who would have thought we'd be recording on Easter Saturday? Well, it really is the time to adapt, and adapt we are. So how are you finding things, Rik?
I'm finding things about when someone said to me, enjoy the long weekend, I go, I feel like the last 3 weeks have been long weekends. It's been like working from home with my family around and all that sort of stuff. So I like everybody, mate. I think I'm just, getting into the rhythm of the new norm, whatever that looks like for each individual. But interesting times, there's no questions about that. And we want to see if we can sort of bring some value with this conversation today, which, as you say, is over Zoom, which until the social distancing rules change, it's probably the way it's going to have to be.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think it's important to note right off the cusp that it's temporary, not permanent. So I think we just do have to remember that. And also understanding that we've got choices, and the choices is what we're listening to and what we're absorbing out there by way of information. I don't know about you, but I've never seen so many people who are now health experts and giving us all the framework for what we should be doing, as well as for economic and health reasons and so forth. But it's those that are just really, head down, bottom up, and really working on themselves. And as I said, understanding that it is temporary, not permanent, and because you do have control, and sometimes you feel like you don't have control. So hopefully today we can share a bit with the listeners about what we're going through, and also just have open discussions. And I'd love to really just pry into your mind as well, into your deep thoughts there, Rik, in terms of how you're seeing things, because I know you've shared a lot through various networks over the past week or so.
Yep.
But, one thing I know is that I'm passionate about is controlling my attitude, controlling, my destiny, controlling the discipline that I go through on a day-to-day basis, well and truly controlling those habits, and also not losing sight of that end goal and those goals as such. And I think it really does then start from the priorities that we do set for each other on a day-to-day basis.
Wow, mate, I've got to tell you, just from that entry right there, I reckon every one of our listeners, every one of our viewers on YouTube could actually just fill their journals with what your opening gambit is. That is so true. It's choice time, and we make some decisions around those choices. As we know, it's sort of a lot of noise out there at the minute, but you just choose where you're going to focus and choose what you're going to listen to. And then most importantly, it's not the conditions that we're working under at the moment, or the conditions that the world is put under at the moment. It's really our decisions around that. And so your mindset seems to be, to me, mate, to be as bloody good as it gets. I'm actually impressed with that opening setup.
Well, it goes back to, and I know you shared the slide recently, but of the whitewater. And I love that analogy, and hey, how about we do some analogies and metaphors today in terms of like, because I got a couple of beauties to start with that have been shared to me as well. But the white water is where we're at right now. It's who can navigate through that, because when there's flat water and there's no ripples or anything like that, it's pretty easy just to float and just let the tide take you wherever you need to go. When we hit this rough, turbulent times as we're in right now, and the rough white water, shall I say, you really do need to carefully look at how you're navigating things. So this comes from a mindset, comes from a belief set, comes from a health set. So it's not just about, I love the conversation today, not just to be totally about business, but also about, health and personal as well. Because as we always say, life is primary, business is secondary, and it's no different right now. Yeah. So the other thing that I'll lead into as well, in terms of metaphorically speaking, and this is the one I love, and it was shared with me by a colleague, but it's a little bit like the pace car's just come out onto the track and it's bunched everyone up. So you may have had people who are flying and really in that zone and in huge momentum. Right now, a little thing called COVID is the pace car, and it's come out on the track, and now everyone's bunched up.
Love it. I don't think it gets much better than that again. I don't really have anything to contribute today, mate. I think you've kicked it open beautifully, and that sort of analogy works really, really well too. You know, one of the things in terms of philosophically speaking is that, again, the late great Jimmy Rohn, who I think I quote just about every time I'm speaking to people at the moment, because he was the smartest philosopher I knew, and he could use metaphors better than anyone I've ever sort of been around, as all good quality educators do, Pete. He could make something that was very complex very easy to understand. He'd say the winds of change, the winds of despair, the winds of challenge blow on everybody. But it's not so much the winds, it's the set of the sail. And our philosophy is the set of the sail. And the same wind that's going to blow us to the harbour of achievement in these periods of times, and the opportunity and the solution, is the same winds that are drifting people further out to a dark sea where they have no rudder and they don't feel like they're in control of anything. So I think you're so right. If your focus is right, you're in some sort of control, focus on your decisions you can make in these conditions that are set upon us, and be the best version of you can be going forward, because the big picture still should stay the same. You know, I love that saying, this too shall pass, the old Persian saying that says, we will get through this. When we get through this, it's how we arrive there that dictates pretty much how quickly, as you said to me privately off camera and off air, how we slingshot out of this. You know, it's really about the work we're doing right now with our headspace and getting it absolutely right to make sure that that's well and truly done. And I loved your, you know, whitewater's force versus flow. I've used it a lot in my leadership discussions with people, more to the metaphor of, you know, you'd never step in the same river twice. It's always constantly moving. And I think the situation is a bit like a moving river. It's changing so often. I mean, if you think back 3 weeks ago, we were thinking, oh, gosh, you know, it's going to be disappointing. We might not be able to watch some footy. We'll have to just watch it on TV. Now there's no sport being played, not just in Australia, not just in New Zealand, not globally. You know, so it's changing so quickly about what you could and couldn't do. And so therefore what I'm saying is that all we have really control of is setting the sail, and we can set it any way we like and push the rudder any direction we want. My message will be to always look for the positive in the challenge and look for the solution to the challenge. And I'm always a glass half full, not half empty kind of cat. So I do smell the flowers and say, where's the wedding, not where's the funeral? And that's not to make light of it, because, you know, obviously I think globally at the moment the death toll's over 100,000, which is just, you know, one's too many. So 100,000 is ridiculous. But, yeah, so my message, I guess, is that I love your metaphors because it does help simplify what a bloody complex times, and it gives us just something that we can latch onto. So hopefully our listening audience, our viewing audience is getting some value out of this conversation thus far.
Yeah, I think it's well and truly, as you said, it's about charting a path. So we need to know where we're going, and this is going to come back to how we actually set up our days with those priorities and so forth, because it's pretty easy to float through a day, especially now. And it's interesting, you know, we look at a lot of business owners didn't really like the idea of having people work from home and so forth. It was a real challenge because, you know, are they going to be disciplined enough? Are they going to be productive enough? All these questions came in, and now all of a sudden people are realising that, hang on a minute, you know, Zoom just didn't arrive a month ago when COVID, you know, really hit Australia hard. It's been around for some time. People have been doing video calls for a long, long time, but now all of a sudden and as you can see with Instagram posts and so forth, it's like people have just discovered it. But the other thing I'll say about that is it almost feels like people have just discovered really in terms of the knowledge, wealth of knowledge that's actually out there in the ether, like on YouTube or on TED, or they're just finding some incredible philosophies and information and learnings that have been around for some time, but kudos to those people now, because it's interesting in dark times, you know, we shine that light on things that are having profound effect on individuals as we navigate through this, and as we chart this path through there, because we do have choice, and we always remember that we have choice. You could either be, well, I think we've spoken about this many times before, Rick, I'm not sure on VV, but, you know, you can either be that victim or that leader. You can either take, you know, ownership and responsibility and accountability around your actions and so forth, and how you're leading your way through this, or you can be that victim. You can bury your head in the sand. You could blame Wuhan. You could, you know, make excuses for things. You can deny what's going on. And by the way, there's been a hell of a lot of denial as well in terms of, it's not really as bad, or, well, it is what it is. So let's, I guess, get out of the broadcast area, get out of the stands, get on the court, and let's play the game. Let's chart this path. Let's develop some really critical priorities, and let's start moving in that general direction and make sure that when we come out of it, we actually achieve something. So, Rick, I want to ask you a question.
Yep.
And this question was asked to me a couple of days ago, and I just sat there and went, wow, love that. But, you know, if we have the beauty of hindsight, so we're 2 years down the track from now, and we're looking, we've got this wonderful hindsight. And I'm going to say, Rick, you know, during COVID-19, the lockdown, what do you wish you had have done?
Yeah. So
2 years down the track, looking back in hindsight, and I'm saying, what do you regret that you didn't do? What were the opportunities that existed for you right then?
Geez, that really puts the cook in the kitchen, doesn't it, and decides what do you want to bake from here on out. That's a bloody great question, mate. I think, you know, as someone who always said I can never find the time to do such and such, now time's been made for us a little bit to do that, I would have thought. So, and I've got to say to you, you know, I'd like to think I've done a lot in the short period of time anyway, taking a lot of my learning platforms online now and things of that nature. And, you know, but gosh, there's so much you could still do. I was about to say, in response to what you just said prior to asking me that question about, you know, that there seems to be this fresh approach to personal development now. That's something you and I have had a passion about for close to 3 decades. So, you know, it's great, as you say, that the rest is, you know, maybe catching up in some areas potentially to what we might have found as being a normal mode for us. But, you know, I think what I hear with all this is necessity is the mother of all skill, because we need some reference points, some changing points. You know, I'm speaking to so many people as I coach them right through this that they're actually surprising themselves how productive they are at home. They feel like 3 or 4 hours at home is more productive than 8 or 9 hours in the office because they have less distractions, less commute, less failed appointments, no shows and stuff of that nature. But I think if I was going to really honestly say to you with authenticity about what I wish I had have done, I wished our planets had have aligned so that the property that we've been searching for probably 5 years, which we believe we've secured, Pete, in these challenging times. I wish we were in it because I could be thinking about all the things I could be doing right now. I get frustrated very easily and very quickly, and Gay always says to me, you know, you need to go outside and do something. And so like yesterday, I not only cut the grass of the property that we're in right now, I cut across the road from me, my neighbour's 2 doors down. So I guess 2 years from now, I wish that we had been having our planets aligned so we could be in our own property so we could do the renovations that we've already earmarked to do on this new one when we settle on it later in the year, Pete. So with authenticity, that would be it for me, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, isn't it? I liken it to a 200-metre race, and I'd like to I could share some athletic stories from you for when I was a junior, Rick, but we won't. We digress. But the 200-metre race has always been a very interesting race to watch because it's very hard to tell who's actually doing really well in the first 100 metres. You can sort of see if someone's creeping up on the lane next to them. But when you come out of that bend and into the straight, you know who's done the work on the bend and who's in front, and then we get a better perspective on things. Right now, I truly believe that we are on the bend. We are in that 200-metre race on the bend, and we're absolutely pedalling like crazy. And we don't really have an option, do we? We do have to pedal like crazy. For me, there's no other option. We just got to just keep going to it because there's no plan B. I'm not prepared to sort of sit here and wallow and all that sort of stuff. It's got to be like, right, what are we doing? Let's make these changes and let's adapt right now. So once we come out of this, and as you said before, when we slingshot out of this, it's going to be who has worked the hardest at this time.
Absolutely. My message to everybody is the conversations you're having in the next 5 minutes, 5 hours and 5 days will set up the next 5 months for you. If you're having genuine conversations with people, both as professional, personal, also maybe in your role and also a role as a leader. My message is that it's really about black and white at the moment. There's no grey. And if we're seeing anything with world leaders at the moment, the ones who are seemingly meeting this challenge are the ones who are very clear with their communication, very clear with their messaging, and it's very black and very white. The ones that are kind of people are making fun of on social media, and I'm not spending too much time on social media because I've got to tell you, you can lose so much of your day there. But the ones that are being made fun of are the ones that are giving mixed messages, or what we call very vanilla or very grey messaging. So, you know, my message to leaders is be very clear on what you're messaging so that your teams, it doesn't mean you have to say, here's when the finish line is. No one can say it with certainty. Just be very clear with what your messaging is. Hey, that'll take care of itself. If we take care of the next 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, the next 5 weeks will come, God willing. But, you know, I think that was kind of really what you were talking about earlier, about narrowing your focus and getting you back in alignment with what you really ultimately want to be doing. So my message would be right here, right now, that, you know, the 3 things I'm observing is, number one, the people who are doing the work seemingly are getting instant rewards almost now, which is fantastic. You know, they are getting instant rewards. Number 2, they're probably setting up the next 5 years with the work they're doing, you know, in these sort of moments in the next 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, potentially even 5 weeks. And the last point to that is that, you know, as we said earlier, you know, you sent me a link of a video of a really cool, you know, interview that you were a part of, and, you know, I was listening to the respondent giving some great stuff, and in my mind I'm thinking what he's trying to say there is necessity is the mother of all skill, and I think he said necessity is the mother of all invention, and I go either way, it's absolutely true. We get the greatest growth, we find the greatest things about ourselves, not in times of comfort and ease and joy, but when we're challenged. So why so many people are finding personal development things that we might have found a decade or 2 ago isn't because we're smarter or sharper than the rest. It's just that we had a focus for it then. Yeah. Necessity is making that a focus for those sort of people now. So when I see those posts on social media and I go, I love it. Yeah, when I see someone go, I heard this for the first time the other day, I thought it would be useful in these days and age. Like when you travel on aeroplanes and the safety demonstration talks about the oxygen mask and you put your own mask on first before helping others. And I'm kind of going, gosh, I reckon I heard that in 96. It doesn't make me smarter. It just makes me aware that because I've had this quest for personal development, this quest for upskilling, it's probably made me find stuff. Just like, you know, you and I aren't the most musical, instrumental people of all time. In my mind, I think I'm a rock star, but I can't play a note. I don't know if I can sing a note. But if our focus was music, we'd be probably giving, you know, when you said, what would you regret? Well, I regret that I, you know, didn't sharpen my ability to play the piano or something like that. You know, so it's wherever your focus goes, as you said earlier, Pete, energy flows. So my focus is realistically about people, connecting, leadership, you know, concepts that are going to have some strategies, and just making sure people are really aware of what they're saying. Because, you know, I saw a post a couple of days ago when someone said, you know, when it's really all said and done, Australia, it's not that bad. We've only had 60 odd deaths or whatever the number was. But I type back straight away and go, I hear what you're saying. The number doesn't sound that much unless one of those is someone you love. Yeah. Imagine one of those 60 is your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your auntie, your daughter, your son. God help you. That person then goes, hey, thanks for the stiff uppercut. I've removed the post. And I said, it's not about removing the post. It's about just realigning your thinking. Number doesn't sound that huge because you almost go, that's something that's happening to other people. Well, I'll tell you what, if that was someone that was one of yours, sugar, it would give you a whole different perspective, wouldn't it?
So it's really about, having those balanced feelings, and I guess taking our emotional bias out of what's actually going on, because, you know, and we can control our own headspace and what we're doing and our reactions and so forth. But what gets written, what gets seen, and opinions. I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I love what you said before about, you know, with social media. I mean, you either get an option now to create or to consume. And if you want to consume, well, you can sit there and make yourself feel as crap as you possibly can. Just sit there for 1 hour and scroll through Facebook, Insta, not so much LinkedIn, but, you know, certainly those two platforms. And if you want to feel pretty ordinary, you can pretty much do so.
Yeah.
Or you can be the change that the world wants to see, or that you want to see, and start creating things of real impact to people. Because I'll tell you, Rick, when this is all said and done, people really are going to remember how you made them feel more than anything. It's how you made them feel. So through this, the generosity and so forth, in our street here, there's a WhatsApp group, everyone bouncing off each other. Who needs this? Who needs that? Can I help anyone there? Can I do that? Whatever it may be. People within our company have basically gone through their they've prioritised their databases, so they go with more of the older generation first, checking in with those people. Bang, bang, bang. Need help. Need help. Need help. Need help. And you don't have to be old and so far. You could be a single mum. You could be a single dad. You could just be alone. Quarantining alone. So it's really, really hard. And then you get those that want to talk about balance. I tell you what, is out there's a 5 and a 7-year-old, and my wife who's starting a new business. You want to talk about balance? And then I tell you what, our days are in turmoil every single day. But you know what? We need to navigate our way through. So productivity is not an option. So working in chunks and so forth is just critical in terms of how we set up our day. Just can I ask you that, Rick, in terms of how you're setting up the day and how you're comfortable sort of working in this environment, but any little tips and so forth of how you do set up a day and how you do work from home?
Well, I think that the way I have it is my mind is pretty clear on what my day ahead looks like because I've got it planned that day before a little bit, and then I'm in a routine. So I just said this live to a coaching group that's a closed group, pretty cool operators. I say to them, if I was traveling, I'd be in a hotel room. If I'm at home, I'm at home. But my day starts the same way. I get up about the same time every day. I jump into a shower. As soon as that shower faucet turns water on and hits my face, that's almost like the trigger for me to go, okay, are you ready to help people get to a better place today? Because if you're not, go back to bed. Where a lot of people sometimes, Pete, their alarm clocks go. I don't wake up to an alarm clock, and it frustrates my wife that I can just get up when I need to get up. But a lot of people's alarm clocks goes off, then they hit snooze, so that pre-frames them straight away, doesn't it? They're happy to snooze through the day. So I think the first thing for me is my commute at the moment is get out of bed, go straight to the ensuite, hit the shower. Water hits my face. It's asking me, are you ready to make a difference today? Are you ready to get on with it today? My commute is then from my dressing room into the kitchen, and I make myself a very stiff coffee, no sugar, which I know really irritates your wife that I don't have sugar, just to get rid of the acidity. But look, we'll keep on moving on. But my days are set up, and I think I said this to you this week, just when we had a private phone conversation. An hour on Zoom feels like 10 minutes. Yep. I feel like I'm living a dog's life at the moment. Every year they're living 7. It's almost like unbelievable. So on that,
I just saw a post this morning, someone saying that now they know how dogs feel about going for a walk.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the happiest people about this lockdown, if that's the right terminology to call it, or lock-in, they say, dogs are the happiest people that don't want it to end because, and it's true. We live opposite a park at the moment. We're seeing how many people take their dogs for a walk. It's scary. And we've taken our 18-year-old pug crossed with a griffon and our 10-year-old English staffy for walks every day, Gay and I. And it's just so interesting to sort of have that opportunity. But in short, Pete, have a routine that serves you. Have a work area that allows flow to go. You don't want a work environment that sort of interrupts you. And my message is chunking is critical. Be on task or on calls or on emails or on something for no less than 45 minutes, no more than 90. Then you've got to get up and take a break. And my view is if I've been on task for 45 minutes to 90 minutes, if I've been on for that long, I'm going to be off for at least half an hour. Then I'm going to come back on and do it again. It'll be interesting when our daughter goes back to school because she'll be going back to school from her bedroom. And we've got to set up there because she's going to be on Zoom. I'm going to be working from the study on Zoom. It's going to be very much an interesting case to see how that works. But we've said to Amelia, you have to have a routine that serves you. So my message is get a routine that serves you. I think it would be silly to get up, get into a daggy trackie, put on a pair of moccasins, put on a beanie and then think you're in work mode because your brain isn't going to respond to that as well as you think. So go through your normal routines. If you're going to the office, I Zoom a lot. I had a day off where I didn't sort of expect to be on Zoom and was on about 3 and I was really kicking myself that I was casually dressed and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, my message summing up with that is get a routine that serves you. I know it the day before I look at it. I understand the outcome I want before I actually get on the Zoom. So I don't just go blindly and go, this is a Zoom between, 2:30 and 3 on a certain day. What's my outcome I want when I hang up at 2:59 with Peter Kakos? What's the outcome I want? So I don't dial in or I don't zoom in or I don't do anything without an agenda, which sounds a little bit like I'm being deceptive with an agenda, but it's actually giving me, I think routine sets me free and I think an an agenda gives me clarity and what I want to be able to say and get out of each appointment. So, Zoom's something I've been using for 2 years. I'm very clear when I get on it, what I'm trying to do. And, as you know, mate, we are still looking for ways to get productive in these restrictions. We're restricted to one half of the field. We've just got to be best on ground to that half of the field as best we can. And I think that's really about how we set ourselves up to play.
Yeah, it's just navigating the new landscape. That's what we've got to do. Just something to add to that. And, yeah, like you touched on, the priorities are important. Top 3 priorities, really important. The other thing is and I love the fact you have an agenda and you should be shouting that from the rooftops, because what I'm hearing and potentially seeing is Zoom meetings for the sake of meetings. Yeah. It's like I'm whacking a bit of FaceTime. I'm going to jump on Zoom and just have a bit of a yarn and so forth. Like, look, it's okay to do that from time to time, I guess, but you've really got to set those daily goals and get those priorities. Otherwise, the days just go. It's incredible. They are not stopping. We've just motored through the last couple of weeks, without a doubt. The other thing I'll say to that, just in closing around working from home, is it's just so your workspace at home is just so important. Yeah. So I've got a desk where we actually filmed the last Zoom from, our last Voices of Value from. It just wasn't working because my wife works right next to me. Apparently I'm loud on the phone and so forth, and whatever it may be. So I came into the front room and actually just decked it out now. So I've actually got a trestle table I grabbed from the garage and I set that up. I went to the office and grabbed my screens and set that up. I got new cords, connected everything up. I've got the lighting here now for Zoom calls and so forth. I'm absolutely prepared. Not just for today or tomorrow. I'm prepared for, if this goes on another month, well, you know what? I can't miss an opportunity to be productive. I don't want that beauty of hindsight in 2 years. Say, what would you wish? Oh, gee, I wish I'd had to set myself up and take it a bit more seriously, because the reality is, a lot of people saying, I'm going to take a holiday or take a break, whatever. Well, I can't understand. Why would you take a break when you can't go anywhere? Yeah. This is actually the time to actually work on your business. We talk about on the business versus in the business. Well, is this not an ideal time to actually work on the business? So because for a lot of us, we actually don't have a choice to work in the business. But, on these Zoom calls and on these meetings, it's really clear when you talk about agendas, Rick, is set those priorities up for you and for others and understand that. Share challenges. Share quick wins. You need to be shouting those wins from a rooftop well and truly. And then look for new ideas, new initiatives and so forth. Like, we've got a guy in our office that's partner works for Swiss Vitamins, and they're doing some really cool stuff on their Zoom calls. One of their Zoom calls, I think on a Friday at 4:00, they're having it's called Quarantini. So you actually bring your own favourite cocktail to the meeting at 4:00. I know that's an alcohol, Rick, because you don't drink alcohol, but little things like that. I know there's been a lot of people who are putting hats on and crazy stuff and that. I think that's great culturally. Yeah. I think it's fantastic culturally, actually, in terms of keeping that team bonding well and truly alive and well. However, there needs to be some outcomes. There needs to be set priorities in terms of what you're able to do, and I'm loving that part of it at the moment, because the implementation and new initiatives that we're able to adopt to navigate, as I said, this landscape is actually quite exciting.
Yeah, I'm loving all of this. I mean, this is an episode, and I'll be really candid with all of our listeners and viewers. I don't replay a lot of our sessions because I do the learning as we're going. But I've got to say to you, I'm going to be watching this one back again or listening to this one again, because I reckon your opening sort of conversation, it was full of so many value gems there. It was bloody clear to me that you'd prepare for this much better than I had, mate, to be brutally honest. But I think the other thing that really stands out when you talk about that there, I'm now remembering books that I've read over the journey, because I don't know if you've had this request, Pete, but I've had so many people. When I say so many, I'm talking north of 10, south of 20 in the last few days go to me, hey, what would you recommend as a good personal development book for me to read? So people are actually going, what would you read if you were me right now? And I'm thinking, that's a hard one to really know. But I loved reading a book written by Alan Alda from, Hollywood acting fame of MASH. And
yeah, I was going to say that now. Yeah.
Alan Alda played Hawkeye Pierce in MASH, and still to this day is a very, very sharp dude, even though he's got sort of Parkinson's disease, my understanding. But he talks in a book, which is the conversations you have with yourself or never have your dog stuffed. I can't remember. It's one of these two books that he's had. But, he talks about the conversations that people have with everyone. And then just at the doorway, as they're about to leave, they say, oh, by the way, the real reason I want to speak to you today, Pete, is this. He says in the book, people should just start off with that. Just you get in the conversation and you do small talk. How you doing? How's this? How's that? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, before I go, he says, that it's really good to have a very clear outcome you want, or an agenda that you want, or a priority of what you want out of this connection and conversation, so that you can't get off the phone at the other end and go, or you can't end meeting for all on Zoom and go, I don't know if I actually got out of that what I needed. I don't even know if they got what they needed. But if it's very clear about what you're trying to achieve, then you've got much better chance of hitting it. If we know the target, it's a pretty strong chance of hitting it. Again, that's black and white, not grey. If I get on this and see where this takes me, that's probably not ideal. So, and again, that force versus flow, you can be in the flow if you actually have an understanding about which way you want the tide to go, or which way you're going to work with the tide to a degree, not just get in there and wing it. So, which is kind of hard, because I am a bit of I don't like to over prepare. But I do know if I'm going to do something like this today, what's my thinking around it? My thinking around it is, if we want better results, we're going to have to sort of give ourselves, as you say, a workspace from home that works, that allows us to give us every chance to do it. Have a very clear idea about what you're trying to achieve with each segment of that day. But again, routine's going to set you free.
I think, that's great stuff. The leadership aspect of it is more critical now than ever. And I'm not talking about from a business sense here. I'm talking about from a personal sense. I've got a team that rely on me to find a way to navigate this whitewater and to nurture them through it. They're big enough and ugly enough and smart enough to navigate through, I'm sure. But I think we all need that support. And Rick, you've been an incredible support for me. And just being able to sort of bounce stuff off you and get that thinking right, because I actually, I don't love COVID-19, but I love times when you could actually stop, think, ponder, because this is a time where you really do need to step back, take a breath, look around you, identify opportunities, but most importantly, keep moving forward and look for things. So getting back to that leadership conversation, I've got a team that depends upon me, but I've also got a family that depends upon me. And a wife and two kids, my sisters, my brother-in-laws, my mum, my in-laws, and so forth like that. I think collectively, it's everyone to empathise with everyone's situation, and everyone's got their own mindset and belief around what's going on, and that's okay. No judgment, no criticism, no judgment. I know my path, and I'm navigating through my path. And hey, I want to sort of take as many people with me as possible that want to join on a positive path. So that's the way I look at it, and I'm enjoying just that pondering, that pensiveness of just being plunged in thought and really just taking on what it actually is. So it's and I see this as a great time to really stand up as a leader, and not have a talk fest, but actually empathise, really listen, get a really in-depth, innate understanding of what's going on. Then we can chart the waters, together and see what is that light at the end of the tunnel.
I've got to tell you, mate, this is like Wayne Carey dominating a game. You're taking pack marks. You're just sinking them from outside 50 on all angles. It's bloody. I'm going to re-listen to it because I think it is just absolute bloody gold. As a way of tying it all in, you asked me 2 years from now, what will I sort of look back on and go, I'm glad I did these things, or I wish I had done these things. Maybe another way of looking at it too is to maybe write yourself a letter in these times of reflection, in these times of understanding what's going on. It's now been 2 years since COVID-19. It's now Easter 2021 or a year, Easter 2020, however far you want to project forward. And my life has changed immeasurably for the better because these things happen. Start jotting down some things you want to actually take on board and learn from this. So, i.e., Pete, if you're somebody who hasn't been switched on to personal development, but now you're absorbing it, you make it a discipline to maybe read a book a month, to maybe listen to an audio program every second week, to maybe watch a TED Talk once a day for 8, 9, 10 minutes, potentially. I'm not saying that's what you have to do. I'm just saying maybe that's something you could consider doing. I know I'm going to look back on this period when people are saying we don't know what the real estate market's doing, what the financial market's doing, why would you buy now, wouldn't you wait? I know we're going to benefit because we made a decisive decision as a family, not just me, my wife and I, and we entered a negotiation on a property that we couldn't go back and have a look at it again because the rules changed. So we'd seen it once. We'd seen it weeks ago, by the way, and it was only through sort of follow-up from the part of the agent and follow-up from us that we're able to get a deal done, contract signed. Now, I'm going to look back on this moment in time and go, it was because we were clear, because we were decisive, and in uncertain times, the people who make decisive decisions seem to benefit from it. No different to 2008 during the GFC or Y2K in 2000 or any other challenge that's ever come. Clearly, the good news stories post those challenging times were the people who just got on and made some decisions, just got on, took some action, just backed themselves in a little bit. So, Gay and I have been together a long time, so it's very easy for us to have trust and faith in each other. And I know she's going to support me no matter what, and I know that I'm there for her no matter what. So if we get this wrong, at least we've had a crack at doing something, but I don't think we will. I think we'll look back and go, I'm glad we did it. So maybe one of the last tips we can give our audience today is to maybe write a letter to yourself in a moment of reflection, of quiet solitude, and just go, it's now been a year or two since COVID-19 and my life has improved so much more because of these things. Jot down some things that you might want to have achieved and done, and maybe you've written that book. Maybe you've done the thing that you've always put on your mental to-do list and never had the time. Now you've got time made for you, so maybe you can do it to a degree. I don't know if that makes sense, but that would be a tip I would sort of leave our audience with this week.
Brilliant. I remember doing that, Rick, in your course back in the 90s as well, and what a phenomenal idea, and I forgot all about that, but what a great way to do it, because I've seen some people post on Facebook a post to say, I just want this to come up and remind me in 12 months' time, which I think is really cool as well, how we get reminded about things 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the track. So I think that's great. And, gee, it's just got me thinking now, like, don't miss this opportunity to really document. And this is where I was up pretty early this morning journaling. Yeah. And I must admit I've been a little bit – it's probably one area I've been a little bit slacking over recent times. But I tell you, geez, it was a good morning, just journaling, just getting down the thoughts and so forth, because there is an enormous amount. I've been exhausted over the last sort of couple of weeks because it's just, as I said, it's navigating. It's this white water is just, it's tough to navigate. If I'm just floating down, I could actually put the oar down and just have a good look around. How good's this? But when you're actually, when you've got to navigate through and chart yourself through these sorts of turbulent times, it is tiring. You do need to think, so you need to be switched on.
I think you're so spot on about journaling too, because it's the analog way of getting back in touch with who we are. It's a bit of a GPS for us, the old journaling. It's, the G stands for gratitude. What am I grateful for? I'm sure I'm grateful for a fair few more things now because I've got the P part, which is perspective. It's not, my perspective is I'm not locked down at home. I get to stay home and be safe. So it's pretty funky when you got that opportunity.
That opportunity, because there was we did a Zoom through the organisation last week, and we had a guest speaker. It was one of our female agents. It's just really adapted to conditions. She's adopted new initiatives and so forth, and things that she thought she'd never do, and she's doing now. And it was a real breath of fresh air. It was one of those moments that take a real deep breath and just look around.
Yep.
She goes, look, I don't know what's going to happen next week, but I got to tell you, I'm really excited to find out what it is. Yep. And I thought, how's that for a perspective shift?
Yeah, absolutely.
Next week's just going to be worse than this. You know what? I'm excited to find out, because then, because you don't grow unless you're in times of adversity. That's when growth happens.
Yeah.
So this is a chance to do it. So, hopefully this has brought some light into the darkness, Rick, and just share, and we'll continue to do this and get some people on Zoom. And as we said before we started this, Rick, this is not our ideal way of sharing voices of value by way of Zoom, because we are touchy-feely connecting type people. But we've adapted to what we need to do at this particular time.
Yeah.
So let's continue to sort of bring more voices of value to the microphone and to share initiatives in these times, because I'm excited to see who the next speaker is and what the next week holds and so forth, and who is going to bring words of wisdom to the microphone, because this is not Melbourne focused. This is not Australia focused. This is world dominated news at the moment, in communities and globally. This is a massive shift. I mean, I don't want to state the obvious, but it is a massive shift. So we need to keep trying to dig and uncover what it is that people are seeing, what are they feeling, what are they experiencing, and how can we, make the most of this time when humanity has taken this pause. And all of a sudden, there's people in China seeing blue skies for the first time, and there's dolphins in the canals of Venice. There's a whole host of stuff that's sort of going on. So recognise it for what it is. As we said from the outset, it's temporary, not permanent.
Yep.
And continue to think about hindsight in a year or so, and don't have any regrets for this time.
Oh, I love it. I think it's a great way of bringing this to a head, mate. And in that sort of global essence, let's just also, I think we mentioned it in our last episode, that one of our dear friends and Voices of Value's very own sumo guy, Paul McGee, had challenged with COVID-19. The great news is he is through that now, and he sends his thanks for all the best wishes and emails and SMSs, and a lot of them he wasn't responding to because he just didn't have the energy. He was sleeping 14, 16 hours of the day. But it's great that he's doing well in his home. And Voices of Value's very own Sarah Rowe, who's back home in Ireland, and she sort of has been connecting with me saying...
Rick, I think, and I know we haven't discussed this, but I hope you don't mind me saying, but I'd love to get Paul back on again.
Yeah,
because having been through it, because he's one of the smartest guys I know, without a doubt, and not only the smartest guys, he's one of the most generous and caring and thoughtful people that I know, or that we know.
Well, let's just put it on him now, live as we are. That we'll just say, Paul McGee, you'll be available and up for a chat. I got to tell you, he did a podcast interview with Leanne Pilkington, who's also been on Voices of Value, and she's got her own one, Courageous Conversations. And that podcast interview, I actually took about 3 pages of journal notes from him. He was really on his game, which kind of disappointed me that he didn't have that kind of quality with us. But look, that's okay. That's how he rolls. I get how that rock and rolls. But no, I think you're spot on, mate. Let's speak to someone
hopefully he's had time with those 16 hours sleep to rest and rejuvenate to give us something of absolute quality.
I know. He sounds like Grizzly Adams, doesn't he? He's like a bloody bear. He's hibernated for most of the winter. But, I think we'd get that happening, because I think that would be pretty cool. But
let's do it.
Sarah Rowe from Ireland is talking about what it's been like in quarantine as well. As she's left Australia, went back home to, her home in Ireland, and her father being quarantined coming in from China. And when she's telling me those stories, Pete, you just get a whole different perspective, because really – I'm not saying we're bitching and moaning, but you see a lot of people complaining about being locked down at home. It's like, no, you're not locked down. You're just basically restricted to home for the time being. But just be thankful for what you've got there. Be grateful for the fact you got a home. Be grateful for the fact that your head's sitting in the pillow at night, in your own home, and you're safe, not in an ICU unit with bloody tubes sticking all out of you. So, I think we all definitely do that for sure. But hopefully today, my true wish is that everybody listening and watching were able to listen to the way you pre-framed it, because your first introduction into it, mate, was really 11 out of 10. And, it's all about your focus right now. It's all about your perspective. It's all about your attitude of gratitude. It's all about maybe making this a bit of a metaphoric time for you to say, you know what, this isn't going to define me this period, but it's going to refine how I look at the world, and it's going to make sure that I never, ever let the conditions determine my conditions in terms of how I'm going to think about about things, and my decisions are going to be as best I can moving forward. As you say, don't get stuck. Just keep on moving forward. So hopefully there's been some value here for our listening audience, and we do send special love to anyone out there who's doing it tough or knows anyone who is doing it tough, and we'll definitely bring as many voices of value as we can to you during this period where we aren't able to hug each other in a studio, because I love doing that, mate. And but the beautiful thing is I do get the great gift of having you in my life almost I wouldn't say daily, but every second or third day we're yakking at the moment. And as much as you think I'm helping you,
I think it's daily. I'm pretty sure it's daily.
Yeah. Well, Gay says it is. He said you do need to get a room, but we're not allowed to. But I think the real message there I would say is helping others get through it helps us get through it. And I think that's part of leadership, is that we're helping our teams get through, and then by default we get through with them. So we want to burst through the finish line of this. We want to slingshot out of it, and we're going to do that with our communities and our tribes. So again, mate, I want to thank you for this one. It's really been one you've driven, and I've been happy to be a passenger on this one, let me tell you.
Oh, no, look, it's all of us together navigating our way through. So hopefully, our listeners have picked up some value there, and we're always here. So you can always direct messages, or if there's anything that you'd like to share, and that you think would be of value to share out there to the wider world and our listeners. But thanks for another episode of Voices of Value, and thanks for tuning in. And make sure, if you have had some value and some insights and some inspiration, whatever it may be, please make sure you share it with your networks. We really wanted to spread the word and get the word out there. Rick, do you want to say anything in closing?
No, I think you've summed it up brilliantly, mate. Thank you for the gift of you today.
Thank you, mate. And also for you, Ricky. And until next time, thanks for listening to Voices of Value.
We trust you enjoyed listening to Voices of Value, a shared conversation between Rik Rushton, Peter Kakos, and their valued guests. Their views are not necessarily those of the wider world, but they should be. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or your preferred podcast source, and we love to hear both your feedback and ratings on the content we provide. Additional information can be sourced through our website, voicesofvaluepodcast.com. Join the conversation again next week when Peter and Rik continue the search for truth, justice, and the value-added way.